Hi, this is Troy. I'm here.
Hi, Francis. It's Cynthia Mignano. I'm here too.
Oh, hey, Cynthia.
Oh, hey, Dan. Or hey, Troy. Sorry.
Oh, hi. Yeah,
So,
yeah. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. I still can't get my camera to work, but oh well.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, like I was saying, everybody knows what I look like, so as long as they can hear me, I guess that's okay.
I hear you.
Is this just us, or is there anybody else on yet?
I see Francis.
I'm here.
Oh, okay. Hey, Francis, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good.
We miss you, Francis.
Well, thank you. I miss you all too.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, this is just so awkward doing it this way, I'll say.
Yeah, it's not my favorite, but you know.
Yeah,
Hopefully
very much so.
I should have called the tech guy, but I just didn't have a chance to do so. So I'll call him tomorrow and see if I can't figure out how to get this camera thing working.
Well, let's hope by May. Let's hope by the meeting in May. Hopefully, we won't be doing this. Hopefully, we'll be able to have a regular meeting. I hope.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I thought everybody'd be here by like 6:57. You know, I thought everybody'd be on by now.
I feel like reading Rainbow. Remember that show? So I see Dan. I see hey Dan, you're sideways. I don't know how that is, but you're better than me because I'm not even showing up on camera.
I'm sideways.
You were sideways, yes. On my screen you are. That's all right.
Hey, Francis.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Good.
Got a holder for my phone. I gotta figure out how to do this.
Hey, Garrett. Oh, I can't hear you. You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
I can't.
Oh, no. That's odd. I could hear myself.
I can hear you now.
I can hear you.
Oh, there you go.
Hey, Dan, you're upright.
Yeah. Hey, Ashley.
Hey, y'all.
Hey.
I obviously still didn't get my camera thing going, so. Hey, Mayor, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. Very well.
Excellent.
Off.
Hey. Jennifer,
Hey everybody, how are y'all doing?
we're good. How about you?
Good.
Yeah.
We're blessed to still be working and be together at home, working from home with all the boys.
Exactly.
I know these are such unusual times.
They most certainly are. Hopefully they'll be over soon. Is that your chair, Garrett?
That's my chair. I ought to mute maybe when I'm not, so my chair doesn't make noises. There we go.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Hey, all, it's 7 o'clock, and this is Mayor Woolsey at 7 o'clock, and I'd like to call this meeting to order. Would the town clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Bowles,
Present.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Present.
Councilman Milliken,
Present?
Councilman Mullinax,
Present.
and Mayor Woolsey.
So I'm present. If there's no objection, I'd like to dispense with the opening exercises.
No objection.
Okay, hearing
Okay.
none. Let's go forward to the consent agenda. Is there a motion in favor?
So moved.
So that was Councilman Milliken moved that. Is there a second?
I second Councilwoman Mignano.
So yes, our rules we work under is we're all supposed to mention our name before we speak, which I haven't been doing. So this is Mayor Woolsey. So with the consent agenda, there's been a motion in favor and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Well, actually, I take that back. I believe for every vote, we're supposed to have a roll call. So
Good.
with the town clerk,
Mignano, aye.
Councilman Bowles,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Mullinax,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
yes. All right, so this is Mayor Woolsey again, and we're going to go to the information reports. And so are we going to have our finance report?
Yes, I've got it. All right, you can see for March, we did get a good bit of revenue, 359. We received our first payment for the telecommunications last month. A couple of things to note, the 2,000 in projects, public works projects, 900, roughly 1,000 of that was for Weston and Sampson drainage work, and then our stormwater policy review, and then about 1,100 of that was for street signs. Down in supplies, we spent funds for pet weight stations. And then in groundskeeping, about 5,000 of that was for the town arborist work, monitoring Dominion. And then we did receive our the invoice we remitted to the city for the we pay for half of the Sunday openings at the James Allen Rec Center. That was from July to December 2019. That shows up under Parks and Recreation. And then we did have our final invoice we paid. The Santee Street drainage improvements projects, they had to do some regrading work, but all of that was finished up and inspected by Mark and our engineer. And so we issued that final payment. And that's all I have for the finance report.
Mayor Woolsey, are there any questions for the town administrator about finance?
Yes, this is Councilman Milliken. I have a question about under administration and advertising. It seems like there's a big jump in our advertising costs to $47.42 last month.
That was actually what we paid to the County Election Commission for running our elections. And that's where that was charged.
Was that for the elections that were back in November?
November, yes, they just invoiced us for that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for this is Mayor Woolsey. Any other questions for the town administrator for the finance report? Hearing none, let's go on to the administrator's report. Ms. Callahan?
Okay. I did include some follow-up letters in your packet. One of those from our town attorney to Corky's regarding their closing deadline. Also some correspondence between the town and Dominion, including a letter from our attorney, regarding, we feel they're in breach of the tree trimming agreement. You'll find those letters in the packet. We continue to have the arborist supervise Dominion's work. He does have another workshop scheduled with Lewis Tree and their supervisor next week. He does feel the 2020 crew is doing a better job than the 2019 crew. And this past month, we've had 2 calls. One of them was actually today on Stiles Drive, and then one a few weeks ago in Harbor View, which we've had Chris go and add that tree actually to the mitigation list. The county advertised the landscaping for Camp and Folly, and those bids actually came in yesterday. The low bid, it hasn't been qualified or anything yet. There were 2 bids received. The low bid was from True Luck. We do have that agreement with Charleston County. We'll be funding about $30,000 of that work, and the rest will be coming from the tree fund, tree mitigation fund that the county has, as well as TST funds. The drainage work that we did in Linwood, y'all had approved that a few months ago. Before we could meet again, they had everything unearthed, and they had to get back in there. They discovered about 6 culverts that were covered up that weren't shown on the plans. So they estimated that was going to be an additional $13,000 that the mayor went ahead and approved, so we could get that done. I don't think it's going to be that much. They haven't sent us the report yet, the final invoices. Also included that award letter we received on the FEMA hazard mitigation grant, and I have a virtual kickoff meeting with them next week. And we just continue to monitor the COVID-19. The town's issued 14 press releases. In this last one, we included some really good information on 211. I attended a call Tuesday, I think, one day this week, where all of the organizations in the Low Country get together, the Low Country Food Bank, James Allen Outreach, ECHO, all of the groups that have a hand in doing the food pantries, but also rent and utility assistance. I was really impressed how well coordinated that large group is. And county EMD is monitoring that as well, shifting supplies and resources as needed. We did start including that list in our most recent press release. And then just to note, we do, as you see, have permits and inspections still continuing. There were 19 new cases for code enforcement. That is a lot. You see that jump. It is now the growing season, so that will probably continue to be high for the next several months. And that's all I have.
All right, any questions? This is Mayor Woolsey again. Any questions for the town administrator?
Yeah, I just want to say that I'm very, very excited to see that they're finally getting around to the landscaping improvements at Camp and Folly.
Yeah.
It's been a long time coming.
Yes, it has.
So this is Councilwoman Mignano. So where exactly on Camp and Folly are they doing the landscape improvements?
It will be the entire, that will cover the entire intersection improvement project, which the project limits kind of reach not just Camp and Folly, but also up to Eugene Gibbs and Folly. And then a little further down, kind of about to where the auto parts store is, kind of right between Sonic and Auto Parts, I think is where it stops on the south end.
Okay, thank you, Ashley.
Welcome.
To add into that, this is Mayor Woolsey, to add into that, where the sidewalks were constructed along Folly Road a couple years ago, that's the project limits.
Okay, thank you. This Councilwoman Mignano.
Any further questions for the town administrator? Hearing none, let's go to the Public Works report. Public Works Director.
Am I on now?
Yes, you're unmuted.
Okay. All right. Well, good evening, everyone. This is the Public Works report for March 2020. There were 14 new requests for service in March. 8 were drainage related, and staff has responded to all the requests. Construction continued in March on Pinckney Pavilion. Ocean View Stone Post Drainage Project, Thomas Hutton will be making a presentation at the May Drainage Committee meeting to explain their findings and the plans moving forward. Linwood Drainage Rehabilitation Project, Edie's construction began cleaning and camera work on the north outfall system. The city of Charleston is still pursuing clearing the easement along Simpkins Creek behind Lansdowne so the ditch grading can continue down Simpkins Creek. Highland Avenue Drainage Project is an easement acquisition. Staff attended the quarterly meeting of SCASM, that's the South Carolina Association of Stormwater Managers in Columbia. Monthly stormwater managers meeting was held and included a review of progress with the changes to the stormwater ordinance. Staff met also with Stantec Engineering at the Shortwood Street outfall to go over scope study of the Delwood Woodhaven drainage outfall. During March, staff cleaned 6 signs and installed 2 new stop signs and 2 new street name signs. Staff filled 3 potholes with 7 bags of material. And that's our report for March.
This is Mayor Woolsey. Are there any questions for the Public Works Director? Hearing none, let's go to the Island Sheriff's Patrol report. Sergeant James.
I don't believe Sergeant James.
I'm here. No, I'm here.
Oh, you are? Oh.
Yeah, I didn't do social distancing. I just showed up at the office. I didn't know that we weren't meeting, so I didn't know how it was going to work. So anyways, first and foremost, I just want to say, obviously, y'all know that we had one of our young deputies get killed the other morning, and a lot of the deputies that work the Island Sheriff's Patrol actually work with that guy. And so it was a pretty tragic scene. I ended up going out there about 1:30 in the morning, and unfortunately he succumbed to his injuries, and he was 29 years old, and he's from California, lives here with his parents, or lived here with his parents. And on Saturday, they're going to fly him back. If you get a chance, go on the Charleston County Sheriff's Office website, or you can go on my Facebook page. If you go on the Facebook, and you can actually see there's a 4-minute video that was a little bit shorter than the one that shows the whole procession. And it's pretty unbelievable to see the unwavering support from the citizens and also law enforcement the entire time. And it shows it from the air and everything else. So very sad that he got killed in that collision. He'd only been with us, he'd only been cut loose on the road like 6 months. James Island, we've done really well. We're pretty much not stopping a lot of cars, so you won't see a lot of blue lights flashing. We've pretty much scaled back as far as stops go that we started on March 18th to be more in the neighborhoods and to be more visible and not be out there trying to, I mean, if we got somebody that's reckless, DUI, something that we need to stop, we're going to stop it, and we'll do that. So for that half of the month, but for the whole month, like the stats for March, we worked 715 hours, we made 392 stops, wrote 34 tickets, 360 warnings, 102 calls for service, did 20 field interviews, and made 9 arrests. So we had 2 different DUIs. We had 3 grams of weed, a warrant through Folly Beach, a warrant through Somerville, 1 gram of marijuana, family court bench warrant, 2 grams of marijuana, 0.3 grams of cocaine, resisting arrest, leaving scene of an accident. So we haven't scaled back as far as what goes on, as far as how many people we have out here. But of course, the type activity that we're doing has been put back. We haven't had break-ins, have been slim to none. We haven't had any of those. So we know our guys have been staying on top of being out there and being seen in the neighborhoods.
Are there any questions for Sergeant James? This is Mayor.
This is Councilwoman Mignano. For one, we're glad you're back, and for 2, we're very sorry for the loss of your deputy. Our condolences go out to him and his family and everyone who knew him.
Thank you. Yeah. And if y'all didn't know, I mean, I had what they called a TIA on March 18th. It was the day before the meeting. I got really nervous about the meeting in March. And so I had, I guess they call it a mini stroke. So my cholesterol was all over the place. So now I'm on a statin, and I have to eat better. I've lost like 7 pounds, so I can't eat a lot of fried food and red meat, the things that I like, and junk food. So I'm not eating a lot of donuts anymore. It's disappointing. But anyway, but I'm doing good. I mean, you know, there's nothing that I have that lingered on, you know, with the mini stroke. So, but it kind of runs in my family, you know, so I'm 46 years old. So I'll try to stick around for a little bit longer. So.
Absolutely.
Any further questions for Sergeant James? Hearing none, thank you so much.
Yes, sir. You need to stay or?
No, you can, you're dismissed. Thank you so much for coming. All right. Next, we have requests for approval, and we have removal of pine tree on Ptarmigan. Ashley, would you explain that?
This is a pine tree in the right-of-way that is damaging some of the sewer lines of a resident. And PSD recommended that we needed to take those down, and it is within our right-of-way.
Is there a motion in favor?
Good to see you.
I move for that. Councilwoman Mignano.
Councilman Mignano moves and makes a motion in favor. Is there a second? Well, I'll second that. Discussion.
Where, this is Bowles, would you guys paint a picture where the tree is again? I know Ashley said it real briefly, but could you clear where it is again? It's in a drainage right away, or help me out, please.
It's along the road right-of-way. I mean, it's right off the road. I think I have a picture that I could screen share.
Ptarmigan is in Quail Run in that neighborhood, so it's next to the road.
This is Councilman Milliken. I went and had a look at the tree, and I could see that it was fairly close to a water cutoff, but I didn't see it really interfering with the sewer. Of course, you can't because that's underground. But the tree looks to be very healthy, and it's not causing any damage to the roadway. So it was good to find out that there's perhaps something with the sewer lines. Is it blocking the sewer lines or causing the pipes to move? What is the exact problem with the tree and the sewer line?
Mark, could you chime in?
Yes. That actually, what you saw there, the water line is on the house side of the tree. The sewer line is on the other side of the tree, if that makes sense. If you're coming from Town Hall and the tree is on your right, those green capped things, that's the sewer line. And one of them is actually, and that's for the resident that was complaining about it, it's actually pushed up out of the way. PSD's been out there 3 or 4 times to repair the line. It is within our right of way. I measured it out, and our right of way is right behind the tree. It's going to cause a problem.
Is it causing a problem now?
No, it is causing a problem now, a serious one for that homeowner. And for us and our infrastructure with the road, it will start chewing up that road.
So the issue is with the sewer line. It's not with the road.
Not at this time, no.
Any further discussion?
I just want to clarify. It sounds like Mark is saying he believes it's a good idea to take the tree down.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a recommendation. I'm fishing for if we have a recommend. This is Bowles. We have a recommendation that the tree comes down.
I recommend that it comes down.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's bring this to a vote. This is Mayor Woolsey. Let's bring this to a vote. Would the town clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Bowles,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Molinax,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
Yes. So that passes. Okay, this is Mayor Woolsey again, and we'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is amendment to the 1248 Camp Road building lease. That's the old library. Ashley, would you explain what this is about?
Yeah, so this is the, you'll see the amendment that the county sent us for 5 years with an option to renew for another 5 years. And I included with that a memo, just kind of going over the history and where we are. Jennifer Szarzewski is on the call with our design team. We also have some folks from, I believe Ms. Sandman is on the phone. She is with the RMF engineers that also help do that report, and they could help answer any questions you all might have for them.
So this is the mayor, this is Mayor Woolsey. If we vote to approve this, this would agree to a lease for 5 years on that building with the possibility of a renewal for 5 additional years. And so I'll ask, is there a motion in favor of the extension of the lease?
This is Councilman Mullinax, and I make that motion.
Is there a second?
I will second it. Councilman Milliken.
So it's been moved and seconded. So any further discussion, including questions for the engineer or the architect firms about really not necessarily the lease, but any questions, I guess, about the project, they'd be more prepared to answer.
Yes.
Well, Councilman Milliken.
Yes, I have a persistent question about the quality of the HVAC systems. And it's a concern that I've had for some time, just as far as how far they can go and what it might cost to bring them up to speed so that we could have an assurance that they'll function for us during at least the next 5 years. Is there any estimate on what that may cost?
There's 2 ways to look at it. The units you have are 25 years old. You're right, they're near the end of their life, but they've been working, we can't predict whether or not there will be a failure. If you were to do a system replacement because you wanted to come in with something new that meets the current code for ventilation and fresh air, that would be a significant undertaking. I mean, I think a 6-figure undertaking pretty easily. The code does allow you to swap out a unit 1 for 1 with maintenance. So, if you got in and y'all were there for a while and then the condenser outside went kaput, like happens at our houses in the hottest day of the summer. RMF looked into some numbers with manufacturers that make units that might be able to be replaced. And I'm just going to pull up that number if you'll bear with me for a second, because you had a good piece of detail there.
I'm here on the phone if you need me to go into it. This is Raquel Dessler with RMF Engineering, and it was a little under 30,000, and that was for the whole system.
So that's not for all the duct work? That's for the air handler and the units. One thing to know about that, the condensing unit and the packaged unit, right, Raquel?
It's a split system. There's an evaporator in the mezzanine, and then there's a condensing unit outside. So
one thing to know is the mezzanine that Raquel talked about. On the roof of the building, there's an air handler, what kind of like in our houses might be in the attic. And who knows how long ago it was kind of placed in a pit, and then a new roof was built over top of it. That kind of enclosed this unit inside the building. But you cannot access it to replace the unit without either taking that top roof off or taking the ceiling out below. So there would be additional costs beyond that 30,000 for getting that roof off and servicing the change, as well as some contractor costs. So I think that you would need to do some rounding up from the 30,000, but that gives you an order of magnitude.
This is Councilwoman Mignano. I have a question for you about that. So if the air handler is encapsulated, basically, couldn't we look at just unhooking the ductwork from that and leaving the air handler where it is and putting a new one, like rerunning the ductwork? Would that save us money? I would think so.
Raquel, this is Jennifer Szarzewski. Raquel, do you have some thoughts on that one?
I can take this. Yeah, so that is a possibility. We can look at reusing the ductwork and locating where that main goes, and then putting a unit in a different location, whether it's in the ground outside or up on the roof. that is a possibility. For a unit this size for this facility, it's still going to run very similar in cost, but you will be saving on the fact that you don't have to remove the roof in order to do that if you abandon that unit in place.
Okay, thank you.
And the area, when we say remove the roof, I want to make sure it's clear. This is Jennifer Charzewski, sorry, that it's not the whole roof of the building. It's the smaller area about the size of a small room where the unit is.
Yes, this is Councilwoman Mignano, and yes, I understand that you would just have to peel the roof back or whatever, basically to do that. But I think that if we're looking at saving money, excuse me, I'm sorry. Then you know, if we have that other option where we could put a unit somewhere else and run the ductwork to meet it, so that it's more accessible for maintenance and repair, that could be a good option. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, this is Councilman.
This is Mayor Woolsey. And you just need to understand that this is a possibility that if the air conditioner fails and we have to repair it, this is just an estimate of what we think it would cost to do basically a replacement. And so it's about $30,000. Not that we would actually be approving or making that expenditure at this time. It's something that might come up. And we had heard and we had seen proposals for much larger HVAC expenses, which Jennifer explained would be like over $100,000. And those were all associated with major renovations, major changes in the interior floor plan of the building, which would require a new HVAC system, improved HVAC system. Is that correct?
This is Jennifer Charzewski. Yes, that's correct. That if you move spaces around or if you wanted to do a whole new system replacement, it would be different than what you have today because of the current codes, and that would be that larger number. I'd love it if Raquel could confirm whether I was in the right firing range by guessing it'd be at least $100,000.
Yes, I do agree. And I wanted to be clear that the $30,000 for that unit replacement is just the unit. So I would think that you're going to be probably closer to 45 or maybe even 50 if there has to be any ductwork modifications and items like that with contractor markup and materials. So, but I believe that yes, 100,000 is close for a larger system redesign.
And this is Councilman Mullinax. I'm sorry, I skipped you. Did I break in on?
Go ahead, Councilman Mullinax. I'm
okay. Okay, I just had a quick question. But the air condition right now is working okay. Since we know it's at the end of its life, but there's no problems with it that we know of now, is there?
That's correct. We are not aware of problems. Oh, Raquel, go ahead.
Based on the study that we did, the air conditioner, we didn't verify temperature and everything else and how the controls and the system is running. Based on the just a visual of the unit and the systems, it is running. It is in poor condition, but it's doing its job.
And
okay, thank you.
This is Jennifer Charzewski. We base our understanding that it is currently working from talking to Nancy with the library system, who's been the facility manager, based on the library's experience when they were operating the building before they vacated.
okay. Councilwoman Mignano, did you have a question?
I did have a question. Thank you, Mayor. So my question is this. So this amendment that we're voting on right now, this is just for the lease only. This is not for any approval of funds to upgrade or do anything else. This is just for the 5-year lease with an option of 5 more. Is that correct?
Ashley, would you like to answer that?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Any further discussion or
Yes,
questions?
I have another. This is Councilman Milliken. I went over and I had a look at the unit, the HVAC unit that's on the ground. I couldn't access, obviously, the one on the roof, but I looked at the one on the ground, and it has a lot of issues with respect to the fins that come off the cooling unit. A lot of them look like they've been kicked in and are broken. And I wonder, since the building has been empty for almost a year, whether that unit is even going to work at all at this point. It really looks to be in poor condition. And that's something that I think that we probably need to find out as we go down the budget process for the next fiscal year, whether or not we can get that functional again. And what it would cost for those parts, or whether it would just be the end of that particular air handler. Is that something we could replace?
So this is Raquel Dessler with RMF Engineering. So that particular unit is a two-piece unit. You have the unit outside, the condensing unit, and you have the evaporator in the attic.
Mhm.
And that particular unit, it has R22 refrigerant, which from a Geneva connection a while ago is no longer going to be produced because it creates damage to the ozone. So unfortunately, if you wanted to replace that unit outside, you cannot get a R22 refrigerant condensing unit outside. You may be able to replace parts and pieces, but you can't just swap out the condenser and put in a new one like you would at your house if you had a damaged condensing unit outside, which is why that if you have to replace the unit, it's a total package system due to the refrigerant type.
Okay. And that would be up in that $100,000 range if we had to do that.
No.
Nope. That's just their unit replacement type is 30,000.
Okay.
That's direct cost plus the overhead associated with it. And
Correct.
this is Jennifer Charzewski. We held some meetings there over the recent months towards the end of last year. And I don't know if this is accurate to date, but I believe the air conditioning was continuing to run even after the library vacated it. I don't know if it's running now, if that's, I think that would be a good thing to ask because buildings don't do so great when they sit with unconditioned air. But the last few times we were at the building, the system was still running.
The last time I was there was running. Ashley, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it actually is running. We had to go ahead and get the utilities switched in our name. I haven't seen that bill yet, but I've been trying to get with their facilities lady because it still has Johnson controls on it, and so I'm not able to change the temperature. But so it did seem to be running though when I was in there.
This is Councilwoman Mignano. I just have a statement to make about this based on my own experience with my house, when I purchased it, my AC units were both very old, and I was told that they were needing to be replaced, and they lasted another 10 years. So just for, full disclosure, just because it says that it's at the end of its life doesn't necessarily mean that it is going to die tomorrow. And if we're only approving the lease of the building, then maybe that's a consideration.
This is Councilman Mullinax. I had a similar experience with my grandmother's house. Her air conditioning system lasted well past the time that it was supposed to. So yes, some do last much longer than their prescribed lifespan. That's just kind of me putting in my 2 cents on, similar to what Councilwoman Magnano just said.
Okay, any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, let's come to a vote. Would the town clerk call the roll for extending the lease?
Councilman Bowles,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Mullinax,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
Yes. So that passes. So let's go on to committee reports. Our first committee report is the Land Use Committee. Councilwoman Mignano.
Excuse me.
Mayor?
I'm trying to choke to death over here, but no, I have no report.
Point of order, real quick. Did we skip over something added for the funding assistance? This is Bowles.
Yes, there's something called COVID-19 funding assistance.
Right. Did we skip over that?
I guess so. I need a motion to add that to the agenda. Is there a motion in favor?
So
So
moved.
moved.
There's a
Second.
second. So Councilman Milliken moved that and Councilman Bowles seconded. All in favor? Well, we need to call the roll. Would the town clerk please call the roll?
Well, could we specify what the assistance is, Mayor?
We're just adding this to the agenda.
Oh, okay. All right.
Councilman Bowles,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Melanax,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey,
Yes. And so we've added that to the agenda. And so now I would like to ask the town administrator to explain, to discuss the matter. Ashley?
Well, I think that we can, based on some funds that we're going to have available in our community service department, given that we're not going to, Sea Island Habitat is currently not doing repairs. We have money left there. We have money left in Children's Commission because we had to cancel the Easter event. And in talking with James Allen Outreach, they certainly always have a financial need, but more so in this time. They saw 80 people last Saturday. 60 of those were their regular clients. So they had about 20 new folks. They expect to have more of those down the road. They do have about 145 boxes left from Low Country Food Bank. These are boxes that are sort of pre-packed that they give. So I'm sure they'll be able to get more of that. But anyway, there's certainly a need there. I do think we have some funds available that we could contribute to outreach.
This is Bowles. Ashley, do you have any estimate on how much is available?
There's about 20,000 in remaining that we could use out of community service funds. I know we did talk about maybe pulling some of that towards the United Way as well, since they're also, very instrumental in all of this, not just with food, but also with the utility, and the rent, the financial assistance too. But overall, there's about a total of $20,000 I think we could use.
So this is Bowles again. So if there's approximately 20,000 available, and our target would be the food bank with those funds.
I would recommend 15,000 to outreach and 5,000 to the United Way. That would be my recommendation based on what some other, I think, municipalities have given to the United Way, just of a split. But of course, the bulk of that going to our residents, to the James Allen residents in particular.
This is
Yes, Councilman Mignano.
Thank you. So because the utilities are not doing any kind of disconnect at this time, can that 5,000 be used for like rent assistance and things such as that, Ashley?
Yes, and I with it going to the United Way, I'm not exactly sure, what all it would go to. I just know that they help with those matters as well.
Okay.
The mayor might know more about United Way.
So it's there's a COVID-19, a Low Country COVID-19 relief fund. And this is something that supports various nonprofits really throughout the Low Country. And many of the local governments, most local municipalities are helping support a drive to raise money for that fund. And for the next week now, it was 14 days to start with, but for the next week, any funds that are raised will be matched 100% by a grant from the Baker family. And so I'd like to move that we contribute $5,000 to the COVID-19 Relief and Recovery Fund. And this would be for the Low Country broadly.
But Mr. Mayor, can you expand on that? That's Low Country broadly. The target audience that would be matched. And it goes towards food insecurity.
Food and really all of it. It goes to various nonprofits in the Low Country that will, each one will be using this to help support relief and recovery for COVID-19.
And
it's being sponsored by the more directly by the Coastal Community Foundation and the local United Way, and they're supporting all these various foundations. So this would be our contribution to the community at large. And then of course there's also James Island Outreach, which is our own food bank.
This is Councilwoman Mignano. I'm so sorry. I'm just trying to get clarification. So we would be donating $20,000 total, $5,000 to this United Way broad-based thing and $15,000 to our local outreach. Is that correct?
Well, I would just like to speak. I really don't want to speak to the James Island Outreach, which is a wonderful organization, but I happen to be an ex officio member of the board, and I can't really speak to that.
Mayor, if I could make this is Councilman Milliken. If I could make a suggestion, I know that James Island Outreach gets a lot of its resources from the Low Country Food Bank. And one way around this would be to go ahead and perhaps make a donation directly to the Low Country Food Bank with the knowledge that it'll ultimately end up at the outreach. I think that would maybe be a way to let you vote for this.
Well, I would move that we support the coastal, I would suggest that we expend $5,000 towards the COVID-19 Relief and Recovery Fund. And after that is done, then I'll let you all decide what to do with James Island Outreach.
If I could make a suggestion, I agree with the $5,000 for COVID-19 Assistance Fund. And as Ashley indicated, United Way for $5,000 and then $10,000 for the Low Country Food Bank, because that would ultimately get to the outreach.
And just to clarify, when I said United Way, I was talking about the COVID-19 Relief Fund. It's largely organized by United Way, so that's what I was calling it.
Oh, then let's give them $10,000.
Look, I know the mayor's got a pending motion, so I guess to keep everything in order, someone's got to second it because I have an amendment to make on this as well. But before I do, you guys want to go through with the mayor's amendment?
So is there a second to $5,000 for the COVID-19?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Yes, this is Bowles. It's very pleasing to hear that the town has some ability to help everybody. This sounds like something though that maybe some more information is needed on. I'm primarily concerned with just making sure that the town residents who need it get it. I'm going to move that we defer this to the next available time, maybe even for a special meeting or an emergency. Did y'all lose me?
Okay, is there a second for this motion to defer?
Wait, I'm so sorry. This is Councilwoman Mignano. We're deferring what, the 5,000 or this?
All of it, because I'd like to know how much money do we have, where to go, and where would that what would the result be?
Is there a second for the motion to defer?
Hey, right, we're not going to spend it.
All that is on the, all we can really move to defer is the motion to expend $5,000 to support the COVID-19 Recovery and Relief Fund. Is there a motion? Is there a second to that motion to defer? Hearing none, let's go on and continue to discuss whether we should expend $5,000 to the COVID-19 Relief and Recovery Fund. Hearing no further discussion, would you call the roll? Would the town clerk call the roll, please?
Councilman Bowles,
I'm still not clear. We're voting to spend $5,000 and then we're going to come back to what to do with the remaining 15.
Yes. Or any, yes, I guess that's correct.
Well, I mean, this just doesn't, posture-wise, doesn't sound right because you carved out $5,000 to be spent and come back with 15. I think we're voting on what to do with money. So rather than piecemeal vote what to do with 5,000, can we not just vote on what we're going to do with all of it, if anything?
Councilman Bowles, you need to vote yes or no or abstain.
I don't think that this is the correct posture to cast the vote in because the
Okay, so I guess we'll just go on to the next person.
the motion
Town clerk.
the motion to amend was just made to amend the COVID-19 funding assistance from 20 down to 5. And I'm saying we need to.
I'm sorry that actually the only motion on the floor is a motion to
If you want to make a motion,
expend 5,000.
the whole thing.
I'm sorry, we're in the process of voting. The town clerk, please go to the next person.
Voting. I just want to let everyone out there who's watching see that I think there's a smarter way for the town to spend their money. We're kind of glazing through it all right now. And I want to make sure that we.
Councilman Bowles, you asked to defer this action. There was not a second. Then we're calling for a vote on the motion on the floor. There is no more discussion. We are now in the voting process. You don't use your voting time to continue to discuss. So we just need to go forward, and I understand how you feel, but you've made it clear, but you're out of order. And so we need to continue with the vote.
okay. Councilwoman Mignano,
I vote yes for the 5,000.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Mullinax,
Yes.
and Mayor Woolsey.
Yes. So I am not in a position to make any motions about James Island Outreach.
But can I?
Yes,
This
you
is
may.
Councilwoman Mignano, because I would like to make a motion to talk about the $15,000 that we could use towards James Island Outreach. I know several people who work in this organization, and I would like for the town to be able to support the citizens of James Island, whether they are county, city, or town, any of them, so that we can make sure that our neighbors are not going hungry. That causes me a great deal of angst.
Yeah, this is Bowles. That's the very reason I was saying we needed to stop on the 5,000 to make sure that all of the money, if possible, goes to the town residents.
Not what she said.
Well, I believe Councilman Mignano made a motion to spend $15,000 towards James Island Outreach. Is there a second?
I don't think it was a motion for that. I think she made a motion to discuss. That's what I heard.
Okay, well, we need a motion to actually take action. Is there a motion to for any action?
I'll make a motion to support with $15,000 the mission of James Island Outreach and feeding the people of James Island.
And I'll
Second.
second that. This is Councilman Mullinax.
Okay, so now discussion.
This is Councilwoman Mignano. So we want to give the 15,000 to help support the mission of James Island Outreach to support our neighbors and friends and citizens. I think that if we have the funds available, then we should go ahead and move forward. And I mean, we could possibly talk about like a food drive at Town Hall as well. That's a possibility.
Council, Ashley, would you like to speak to that?
To a food drive? Yeah, I mean, we have, batted around that, a good bit, and, just in speaking with outreach, they, during this time, they are seeing a lot of their regular customers who they know their dietary restrictions. They actually know, what they like to eat. And they customize, what they give them. And then they are, daily in conversations with other organizations such as the Low Country Food Bank. And so I feel like just in speaking with him, they are the best outlet for that. But and also speaking with him, we have offered assistance in answering the phone. Some of their volunteers are elderly. There's any way we can help. He said currently they don't have a need, but sometime they could actually have us help field calls for James Island residents and direct them where they need to go.
Well, Ashley, I'm sorry to interrupt. This Councilwoman Mignano again. So do you think that they need the whole 15,000 at James Island Outreach at this particular point in time? I don't want to sound stingy,
Right.
but I want I want to fill the need if there is one, which I'm sure there is. But so talk to me about that, please.
I do. I think, and from speaking with them, then their numbers are only going to continue to grow, as bills come due, and as the longer people are out of work. They are concerned about that. And they don't have a lot of overhead at James Island Outreach. They don't have, I think they only have one person who's actually gets a salary. So
Right.
They are volunteer based. And so I think, the money they get really is, is invested back into the people. So I would say yes.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, would you please call the roll?
Councilman Bowles,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Mullinax,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
Staying because of conflict of interest. Okay.
Point of order, I want to make a motion to amend the agenda as well to include clarity. Last vote we took on hearings, on suspending hearings.
Let's.
If you want to save that for new business, that'd be
I
fine.
think we should save that for new business.
That's fine. We can move on to committee reports then.
Okay, so Land Use Committee.
No report, Cynthia Mignano.
Yes, you already did that. I'm sorry. Environmental
That's all right.
Committee, Councilman Milliken.
Yes, on March 28th, James Island Pride performed a guerrilla litter pickup that netted 15 bags of trash, a box of plate glass, and a tire from Camp Road and Harborview Road. We need to have several more rolling bins to dispose of our litter at the town of James Island, because I guess we need to start putting the litter that we retrieve on these guerrilla pickups into rolling bins. So this is something we need to look into so that we could comply with the PSD requirements. 15 bags of trash was pretty good. We have another litter pickup that we're going to do. We're going to practice everything that we need as far as social distancing, but it's going to be on April 25th, which is a Saturday. We're just going to put the material on the porch and people can come pick up bags and tongs and vests and go out and pick up litter where they'd like to go. But that's going to be on April 25th. 9 a.m. No lunch, just picking up trash. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for Councilman Milliken? Hearing none, let's for the Children's Committee, I have no report. Next, we go to the Public Safety Committee. That's for Councilman Mullinex. Councilman Mullinex.
Just we're having no meeting, of course, for this month, and other than that, I have nothing else to report.
Okay, I have no report for the History Committee, or the History Committee. Next, the Folly Road Committee. We think Folly Road Steering Committee will have an online meeting next week on Wednesday. I don't have the exact time for that. Any questions about that? Okay, next we'll go to the Drainage Committee. Councilman Mullinex.
Well, we're supposed to have a meeting sometime in May, and that's still to be determined, and the format that it'll be in is still to be determined. And other than that, and when I do find out something in both those accounts, I'll let you all know. But that's all I have to report on that right now.
Okay, next we have Business Development Committee, Councilman Bowles.
No report.
Tree Advisory Committee, Councilman Milliken.
We did not meet, but I did attempt a pilot test of our proposed tree survey and have learned that the town does not have the staff expertise or equipment to map tree locations in right-of-ways. When our tree council meets, we will reconceptualize our procedures in a way that could maybe make this tree survey happen. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions for Councilman Milliken? Okay.
I've got a handheld GPS. This is Bowles. If you ever need it later, I've got a handheld GPS. Y'all are welcome to it.
That might be necessary. I think that would work. Thank you.
Next, James Island Intergovernmental Council. I have no report. Okay, we'll next move to proclamations and resolutions. We have a resolution in support of a temporary solution on Telfaro Avenue. Councilman Mignano, would you like to, Councilwoman Mignano, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, I would. I had been reaching out to several citizens in James Island regarding roadways and drainage and issues such as that. And it came to my attention that Taliaferro is, and I've confirmed this with Mark Johnson, that Taliaferro is a failed road, according to STDOT. And it's in the bucket, so to speak, for replacement, but it's been 7 years, and there's a very large sinkhole, for lack of a better word, where it floods it for a very large space. And because SCDOT has no timeline on repairing the road, which would cost millions, according to SCDOT, which they don't have, according to SCDOT, I would like to suggest that we ask them to allow for a temporary solution, like gravel or oyster shells or something, so that these people can continue to use their road until SCDOT gets the funds to fix it correctly. I think that it's very important. SCDOT has a drivability clause is probably not the right word, but they want to make sure that the road matches their drivability regulation. So if you put gravel in it, then it won't match that. But this is already a broken road. It's already broken. I would like to ask for us to move forward to give these people a temporary solution until SCDOT can find it in their budgets to fix it properly. And that's all I have.
Yes, okay. It's moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Bowles,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken, I think he's muted.
Yeah, he is. This is Bowles. There you go.
Sorry, yes.
Councilman Molinax,
Yes.
and Mayor Woolsey.
Yes. So that passes. So the next item on the agenda is emergency ordinance EO4 2020, adoption of the South Carolina state burn ban. So I'd like to make a motion to pass this. Is there a second?
I second that. This is Councilman Mullinax.
I'll briefly speak to that. So the South Carolina Forester passed a burn ban, and it's related to the COVID-19 crisis, and that outside burning is causing people with lung difficulty, and that this is undesirable because it will cause the same kind of irritation in people's lungs, will cause the same problems with the COVID-19 virus. Well, it turns out that while these burn bans apply in all unincorporated areas of the state, including the unincorporated portion of James Island, they don't apply within municipalities. And so there's a state law that says that the municipalities have to develop their own policy. And so this would adopt this the burn ban that the state forester has proposed on an emergency basis. Any further discussion?
Yes. My understanding is that ban includes campfires. So that would mean if anybody wanted to go out in their backyard to their fire pit and sit around it with the family, that would not be allowed. Can anyone clarify if I'm reading that correctly?
I believe that's correct. I believe that the state forester, prohibits recreational burning, including campfires. There are some exceptions, like people burning to prepare food. You can grill outside, but just having a campfire is actually prohibited. Yes.
I think the weather's been so nice, and I see a lot of my neighbors sitting out there with their kids. I will make a motion that we just adopt it with the exclusion of, backyard recreational or campfires to still allow families to come together outside.
Second for that.
I second it. This is Councilwoman Mignano.
Okay, any discussion of the amendment? Any further discussion? Not hearing none. Would the town clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Bowles,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Molinax,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
No. So that amendment passes, and so we move to discussion of the ordinance as amended. Any further discussion? Hearing none, would you please call the roll?
I'm so sorry. Excuse me just for a minute. This is Councilwoman Mignano. So we're voting on approving this ordinance with the amendment?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilman Bowles,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Molinax,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
Yes. I would like to backtrack and add and ask to consider resolution 2020-08, naming of the Pinckney Park Pavilion in honor of Peter M. McCoy. I move adoption of this resolution. Is there a second?
Are you making a motion to amend the agenda, Mayor?
No, it was already on the agenda.
Oh,
I just
I
skipped it.
added to the agenda, just like the COVID-19 funding was added to the agenda that we voted to motion. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're exactly right. So it needs a motion to add it to the agenda. You're correct. Is there a motion? I move that we add it to the agenda. Is there a second?
I second that, Councilman Mullinax.
Okay, would you please call the roll for adding this to the agenda?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Councilman Bowles,
No.
Councilwoman Mignano,
No.
Councilman Milliken,
No.
Councilman Mullinax,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
Yes, so that fails to add that to the agenda. So now we'll move to ordinances for second and final reading. There are none of those, and so we have ordinances for first reading. Ordinance 2020-03. This is an ordinance amending the Town of James Island zoning and land use regulations, Folly Road Corridor District, prohibiting motels and hotels in the North Village, South Village, neighborhood preservation and conservation areas, and adding hotels and motels as a use requiring a special exception in the commercial core area. So I move that we adopt this. Is there a second? Hearing none, it fails. Let's go to ordinance 2020-04, proposed amendments to the Town of James Island zoning and land use development regulations ordinance 153-093 Folly Road Corridor Overlay District, adding hotels and motels as prohibited use in all 5 areas of the Folly Road Overlay Corridor. Is there a motion in favor?
So
I
moved.
do.
Is there a second?
Second, Councilwoman Mignano.
Okay, any discussion?
I just want to say thank you to everybody who's listening, who sent all the emails. I think everybody heard you. There were a ton of emails about this in favor of this. And so I appreciate all the residents for their input.
Any other discussion?
Yes. Councilman
Councilman
Councilman Milliken. I counted them up and I had 54 people contact me about being opposed to hotels and motels in the Folly Road corridor. So that's pretty large outcry.
This is
Councilwoman
Councilwoman Mignano. I would just like to say to all those who are listening, I read every single email, and my job is to represent what you want our town to be. So I heard you loud and clear.
And this
Any
is Councilman
other
Mullinax.
discussion?
I agree.
Councilman Mullinax?
Yes, I agree with everything that Councilwoman Mignano just said. I saw them too, and I have the same feelings on it. Just wanted that for the record.
So I have some comments. So I counted 51, not 54. Perhaps there were 3 I missed. And there are 10,300 voters in the town of James Island. So this represents way less than a fraction of 1% of the people who participated. This was not a random sample of our population, but rather an effort by a small group to organize protests. And as I read through these emails, many times the points were repeated, and some of them just don't add up. And so misinformation was shared, and a small fraction of our people, less than 1%, have come out to town council and repeated claims that are inaccurate, including the notion that a policy of changing our current rules, which we've had for decades, that allow hotels, to one that restricts hotels to a special exception, is the same thing as allowing hotels so that the commercial core of Folly Road will become similar to Highway 17. Now, as I drive down Highway 17, I do occasionally, I really don't notice that there's many hotels. There are a few there. Instead, I notice many strip malls. And in fact, our commercial car is just basically made up of strip malls. And I feel that many of these 50 people, that looking at the information that was shared with them, were under the impression that this rule did not apply to the area of the town of James Island around Camp and Folly, but rather the open area of Folly Road that's not even in the town. So in any case, I think that a ban on all hotels in the town's commercial core is undesirable and really a drastic and unreasonable response to a possibility of one person after all these years having some interest in putting in a hotel on Folly Road. Any further discussion?
I do. This is Councilwoman Mignano. Yes, I have spoken personally to several people about this, and 99.9% of the people that I spoke to are concerned about traffic and the pollution in our creeks and height restrictions, which are an issue, and the character of James Island. And I just really feel that based on all of that information, until we really get a handle on the cleanliness of our waterways, we should not be adding any more big, huge developments, whether it's a hotel or a giant apartment building or whatever, to tax what we already are not managing well. Not we, the town, but as a group of municipalities, that we're not handling this well. We have flooding issues. We have E. coli issues in the creeks. We have all of these things, and so these are all major concerns. So that was my comment. That's what I wanted to put out there.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Yes, I believe that we passed this now because we have these infrastructure issues that Councilwoman Mignano pointed out, but it doesn't exclude the possibility in the future of, once we solve some of these infrastructure issues, that one day maybe we'll be in a position to have decent public transportation. We'll be able to take care of our sewage and water quality issues. And at that point, we can reconsider revising the land use plan when the town is ready for it. But right now we're not. And I think it's important to pass this as it is.
Thank you. This is Bowles.
Yes, Councilman Bowles. Yes.
I'm curious if anybody on this meeting can speak to some of the anticipated benefits of allowing a hotel to go in now.
So what we have before us is not a proposal to allow a hotel to go in, but rather a change.
I understand what we have before us, but you know, if 54 emails represent a very small percentage of the voting population, and these 54 people are misinformed, and I assume some of them are listening to what we're talking about right now, maybe we can inform them on some stuff they don't know. I'm not aware of it, but if anyone else in this meeting has reasons why they think that a hotel would be a good fit for the town, I'm certainly open to hearing it. I'm sure everybody listening would be hear it as well.
In my opinion, the right hotel, a small, nice hotel, would actually enhance our community. Right now, all of the commercial core is developed. I think many of the 50 people that were urged to contact council were under the impression that we were talking about building something on vacant land. Now, there is vacant land on Folly Road in the conservation area near Folly Beach. But in our commercial core, which is at issue, it's already all developed. And currently it's full of strip malls, all which were constructed at a time when there were no restrictions on stormwater, no controls on stormwater. Any redevelopment, including a hotel, would be subject to current regulations on stormwater, which would control the runoff of pollutants into the creek and help protect the creek. I don't believe that we have any problem, and certainly if someone has evidence that we have a problem with sewer capacity for a small hotel, then it could be shared. But I just think that has been an assertion that there is such a capacity constraint. And while we do have problems with sanitary sewer overflows, that they're not caused by the fact that our sewer system does not have enough capacity for sewage. They rather are due to the fact that we have stormwater infiltration into our sewer system. That is a very serious problem that we need to deal with, but that is not a reason to prevent a hotel. So it's really, the arguments against it that are weak. Now, again, I do believe that the right hotel would bring in other desirable businesses, that the people who stay at the hotel would visit restaurants and things in our town, and it could help renovate and redevelop and improve many other areas in the area of the commercial core. In any case, I've asked the Tool Design Group, who works for the Rethink Folly Road, to take a look into hotels and motels and what are the costs and the benefits of allowing hotels. And so rather than take what I think a drastic action of banning hotels in all parts of Folly Road, including the commercial area where I think they would be most appropriate, I think that we should wait and see what they say, look at that evidence, ask the PSD what the sewage, whether we have a sewage capacity problem. If there is not sufficient sewage capacity for a hotel, then the hotel won't be built. So, I just think that this action to ban them is really a inappropriate response.
This is Councilwoman Mignano. I actually spoke to the PSD. They said according to the person I spoke to at PSD, they said they still had like 20% capacity before they reached maximum. However, in my opinion, we already have traffic issues. This is a beautiful creek, and not to be rude to anyone else, but most restaurants on James Island that I would go to, or most restaurants downtown, which downtown is full of hotels. I don't eat at hotel restaurants for the most part, because they're usually not up to what I would like. But either way, I just think that even though only 51 to 54 people emailed in, the percentage of the people who said no, they don't want hotels, is huge compared to the people that I heard from that want hotels. So I think that we have to take that percentage and extrapolate it to our citizens, because if we had 51 people who said they don't want hotels, and then 51 people who said they do, then that would be different, because then that's like what, 102 people. But that's not what we're dealing with. We've got I've had like very few people who said they want hotels, and a huge amount who said in comparison that they do not.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, would you please call the roll?
Councilman Bowles,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Mullinax,
Yes.
and Mayor Woolsey.
No. And so now we'll go to Ordinance 2020-05. This is the adoption of a supplemental stormwater design manual standards. Is there a motion in favor?
I make that motion.
Is there a
Councilman Mullinax.
second? So I'll second it. Ashley, would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, so this is, we had Weston and Sampson review our stormwater guidelines, and this would be a supplemental standard from what Charleston County has, and more restrictive in nature, in response to, a lot of our issues on, allowing the field and build, and what can we do to curb those issues. And we have Bob Horner and Megan Moody are both on the call. And if y'all could just maybe jump in and give a better overview, more technical overview than I can.
Sure, Ashley. Hi, this is Megan Moody with Weston and Sampson. So to take us backwards a little bit, we were hired by the town of James Island to take a look at originally the county's stormwater policies and design standards which the town has adopted and uses. And we went through those and found some things that we wish we could change. We added some things and kind of looked at a holistic picture of stormwater design standards. It was difficult for Charleston County to adopt those into their standard manual. So the thought process was changed in order to make it part of the ordinance and make it supplemental. And so we went back to the drawing board, and so the Charleston County standards remain as they are. There are not any modifications to the existing standards as they are. These are only supplemental, so they are adds. At the same time, fortunately, the city of Charleston is going through their rewrite of their stormwater design standards. So we were fortunate to be able to couple some of the things that have been incorporated into their standard manual, along with some of the ideas that we had brought to the original policy writing, and put together something that does not tackle quality. It only tackles the quantity. So it's volumetric, and looks at reducing runoff and reducing the volume of that runoff. So discharge rates, etc. It does incorporate single family residents. It incorporates non-single family residents, and it also incorporates redevelopment as well as new development. It has a whole host of different items ranging from limiting impervious area, allowing for reduction of volume or discharge rates in the event that impervious area is added in excess of a certain amount. It looks at reducing slope rates or increasing buffers in order to prevent water that's moving fast down a slope to have a chance to slow down and get soaked in before it impedes on another property. So everything around these policies looks at the opportunity to reduce the volume coming off of a property, slow it down, let it soak in, which are the same principles that are applied in low impact development. I'm open to any questions. I know y'all have had this for a little while to read through.
So are there any discussion?
This is Bull.
Yeah, Councilman Bowles.
I'm sorry if we've had these for a while and I haven't read through them. I didn't read through them until we got.
No, you're fine.
Is there any rain collection or rain harvesting considerations in the stormwater manual?
Yes, insofar that it is a compensatory action. So let's say you wanted to add 500 square feet of impervious area, then one of the options, we created a menu type list of trade-offs. So you add that impervious area, the requirement is that you trade off a volume reduction or a discharge rate reduction of the equivalent amount. And rain harvesting is one of those. So you disconnect rain downspouts from your roof of a 500 square foot area of roof and put it into a rain barrel to water your garden. That would be that same thing. So it's an encouragement, not a requirement.
Okay, so you could ground and not put in the rain harvesting measures. It's just an encouragement, not a requirement, as you said.
Correct. There are other options. So you could remove impervious area from something else. So you wanted to put in a driveway, but you have a patio that you would much rather have as pavers. You could remove the concrete patio, put in pavers, as long as it's a trade-off for the equivalent square footage, then you would be able to put in your 500 square foot of driveway. So
Okay.
it doesn't eliminate it. It's an option out there, but it is by no means a requirement on any specific development. It is a suggestion, take your pick, as long as you trade off the impervious area for something that is going to have less runoff.
And follow-up question, the supplemental manual define fill and build?
It defines it. Let me read it. So it's under floodplain storage. So construction activities that reduce storage within the floodplain, commonly known as fill and build, shall be prevented. So it defines it as anything that's going to take up volume away from the existing floodplain storage. And that floodplain is further defined as the 1% AEP floodplain, the 100-year floodplain, plus 2.5 feet of elevation. Due to the location of the town of James Island being a coastal community subject to sea level rises over the next 50 years, we thought it was very important to start tackling that problem now and preventing fill and build from areas that would be the eventual 100-year floodplain.
And it doesn't, or it says it shall prevent it in some areas, in other areas it would be allowable.
So it prevents it. That statement is more of we strongly discourage this, but it goes on that if you do have to, for some reason, and it is allowed under the regulatory folks who govern over that, then it must be mitigated at a 1.25 to 1 replacement within the same volume of the same basin stormwater storage capacity. So if you're allowed to fill in the 100-year floodplain, somewhere in that same basin, that same affected waterway, you must replace that at a 1.25 to 1 ratio. So that may mean that you then put in a flood bench that is, slightly upstream or slightly downstream, that allows more water to hang out in there than what you're taking away from that existing flood.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, I'm Councilman Garrett Milliken. I've got a couple of questions. I get a little worried when I see things like that are indefinite in definitions. And on page 4, you talk about buffers. And at the bottom of page 4, it says the buffer may overlay other vegetated buffers and may contain stormwater features designed to manage stormwater generated by the fill slope. May is a troubling word. I like must rather than may there, if we could, because I don't think it's necessarily that cool to put your stormwater off on a neighbor. So there's got to be a way to perhaps keep that in the place where it needs to be.
So I want to make sure that we're talking on the same avenue of what the buffer means. So the buffer is also the setback of your property. So if you have a 7-foot setback and you only need 3 feet for your runoff, your stormwater buffer for this slope increase, then it shouldn't be 7 feet plus 3 feet, because that 7 feet already accommodates additional runoff space to slow it down before it reaches to the property line. That is my professional opinion. I think that gives sufficient overlay. I don't want to have people reduce in order to have these buffers stacked side by side. They should be allowed to lay over one another, since there are so many buffer requirements, setback requirements on property parcels already.
But again, you have to have some sort of measure of the effectiveness of the buffer with respect to preventing runoff onto adjacent properties. Is that correct?
This accommodates grass, which is the least effective on runoff.
Mm-hmm.
So if you had trees or bushes or flower bed, you would actually have better opportunities for the water to soak in.
Mm-hmm.
So that this already accommodates everything but asphalt, which asphalt's not allowed in there because it specifies vegetated.
Mm-hmm.
So this particular buffer, this area is a requirement for the slope not to be too steep.
Right.
But if you are also required for other reasons to have flowers and shrubs, the flowers and shrubs can go on that slope.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to have the slope with nothing there and then have flowers and shrubs after that. The flowers and shrubs can go on the slope. And the flowers and shrubs, of course, will help with the reduction of any runoff. Similarly, if there is need for some other kind of swale or something to help control the water,
mm-hmm.
because of the situation, that can be in that area where the slope is coming down. And so it's not that you have to have that slow slope and then that's where other buffers start. And I don't think the concern you should understand this as you may or may not put bushes in there. It's just that this particular area of sloping can include other requirements that may be put on the parcel independent of this. And then that would be, for example, vegetative buffers that are not required because of stormwater, but are required because of creating a buffer between the neighboring property for other reasons. So even if there were no buildup, there was no requirement for a gradual slope, there would have been required to have some vegetative buffer or even on a flat piece of land. Or if this, instead of using fill and build, they built the house up on pilings. And that if there were a vegetative buffer required anyway, so that same vegetative buffer could be where the slope is included. That, I think that's what it means. And so it's not that vegetative buffers where needed are just an option. It is rather that it allows overlap, that area of gradual slope can include other possible things that might be needed.
Yeah, I understand. I understand that, and I think that's probably what we do, but the ultimate thing is that we don't want the runoff going on to an adjacent parcel. I think that's the ultimate goal with what
I 100% agree. That is the ultimate goal, which is why we wrote this in order to prevent that, especially for properties in which the fill would take the elevation of that property above the adjoining neighbor.
Yeah, we have issues.
I'm sorry. This is the exact same language that will be in the City of Charleston's design standards, which will be published and made effective July 1st.
One of the additional aspects associated with that includes the type of fill that's being placed and the permeability associated with that fill. So the buffer requirement combined with the permeability requirements will really go a long way towards preventing runoff from small slope areas that, like we're talking about here.
Right. So to address that, on page 5, you also have under soil infiltration and soil quality. There's something I don't like in that called where practical, under 3.6 towards the bottom. Soil infiltration best management practices shall be incorporated into the site design where practical. It seems that should be omitted, the where practical. It seems like soil infiltration best management practices should be something that we strive for no matter what, not where it's practical. Because when you have something like where practical in there, it allows for some wiggle room to be avoided of those best practices. So I would suggest that be omitted from the plan, just because I think it's opening a door to something we don't want to see happen.
And you don't.
Is that a call? Are you asking for an amendment to remove the words where practical?
I am.
Is there a second to that amendment?
I'll second that.
Okay, and then I think you've already spoken to it. I'd like to hear what the engineers have to say. Why did they put where practical? Why would it be a problem removing that language? Or, why
I don't think it's a problem. I'm sorry. I don't think it's a problem at all to remove it and let it stand as it is without those words. I think it was put in there to reinforce that BMPs should be used because they are a standard practice and a requirement. However, there are instances in design whenever we're putting in BMPs to protect wetlands, etc., that's not practical to put it in because of the way that something is going to be constructed. So it allows for it to not be a hard and fast black and white. It gives that gray because construction is not able to always follow 100% of every best management practice. But everybody does the best that they can. But if we remove that, it doesn't materially change anything about what we have in there. So I have no problems with that at all. Bob, do you have anything else?
No, that's fine. It just, addressed the issue that you brought up, but taking it out's fine.
Any further discussion?
On the amendment or on the?
On the amendment? We're discussing the amendment. Okay, hearing none. Would the town clerk call the roll?
Councilman Bowles,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Mullinax,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
Yes. Okay, so now, any further discussion? Councilman Bowles, did you have some further discussion?
Yeah, just wanted to reiterate that it sounded like this prevents what is colloquially referred to as fill and bill. It does not prevent it. It's the same language as the city's manual, according to Miss Moody. I don't think that the town necessarily needs to follow the city's style of development. I like that we have a stormwater manual and that we have a supplemental stormwater design standards. My concern kind of echoes what Councilman Milliken's already hinted or already touched on with the amendment, that there's sections of this that do not go far enough. I would like to see it reworked. I do apologize that I wasn't able to provide what I would like to see as an amended copy of the manual, and be happy to do that later if we were to return to this. That's all from me. Thanks.
Well, I think this would greatly strengthen what we have today. And so I believe that moving forward with adopting this does not prevent us from further amending it at a future time if we think more even stricter changes. There's in no part of this does it weaken in any way the current regulations imposed. The current regulations on stormwater by the town are identical to those of Charleston County, and so this is in addition to those. Ms. Moody, would you like to speak more to this notion that ours are similar to the city of Charleston?
Yeah, so as Bob and I were developing this, we had previously worked with the city on a couple of policy changes to specific special areas within city of Charleston. Some of that was developed because they had, it was a similar tidally influenced creeks and flooding as a result of that. So we incorporated quite a few things from there. I also explored the stormwater design manuals from the city of Savannah. We looked at the city of North Charleston, or sorry, not North Charleston, Myrtle Beach, and then the city of Charleston, their standard manual rewrite. Those things combined take the, in my opinion, the best that each of those different cities had that helped to prevent extra volume and stormwater runoff peak discharges. I focused very hard on the city of Charleston's standard manual, simply because they're coming in at the same time. These are your neighbors, and the hope is that the city of Charleston, town of James Island, and Charleston County will all align and have very similar and supportive design standards. Charleston County is in the process of getting their design standards rewritten, and they are going to look very hard at using some of the same languages that the city of Charleston is using. So this may be in another year and a half, 2 years, these supplemental design standards go away, because everything that we've just discussed in this supplemental policy will be incorporated into Charleston County's rewrite. So anyways, that's
you know, you said that some of this language is very similar to the city of Charleston's rewrite. Do you believe, is in your expert opinion, that the city of Charleston's rewrite has greatly strengthened their stormwater regulation, or is it still about the same? You know, the view amongst many people in James Island is that the city of Charleston just generally allows fill and build. Is that going to be would that be a proper way to characterize their new proposed stormwater manual?
So the city of Charleston, from talking with Matt Fountain and a couple of other council members, I would say that they also felt very similar to Councilman Milliken and Councilman Bowles, that maybe some of the language doesn't go far enough. But it went as far as they were willing to push the envelope on preventing fill and build and other volume removing activities from stormwater capacity, that they were willing to go without damaging developer relationships. Not that they were trying to be developer friendly, but they didn't want to put such a burden on homeowners that the average person couldn't build without having excessive amount of stormwater management worked into plans, and developers not being able to sell houses at a price point that accommodates the population that we're trying to make affordable housing available to.
And I think one thing that, in listening to what you just said, and one thing I need to, I would like to share with council is we need to keep in mind that actually when the city of Charleston develops its regulation to some degree, it's for large developers. We don't have large parcels where large developers are going to be building anything. We are talking about single lots. And these are impositions on single lots. And also if a house is, replaced, the house is destroyed and has to be replaced, what are going to be the requirements? And so we aren't saying, well, these are the big developers and this is what we're going to do with them. For the most part, the whole point of this is that in the past, stormwater regulation in the town and in the county just basically hasn't applied to small parcels with one house at all, or maybe two or three. And then we're trying to change that so that, because it's become a problem where a single house we built in a neighborhood and be built up much higher than its neighbors. And I think we need to be sensitive to the requirements we put on someone who is trying to build a single house. We want to protect their neighbors, that's for sure. Would you say that these regulations protect the neighbors, or have we avoided putting in regulations in order to be consistent with the city of Charleston? Is it, would you say that these regulations do not adequately protect the neighbors in order to keep them consistent with the city of Charleston?
No, I only took those things that did the best that I think that it could do to protect neighbors. I didn't bring in anything that I thought was going to be too loosey-goosey, allow too many wiggle areas that people could do more than what y'all wanted. The town of James Island, Mayor Woolsey made it very clear that the point of this project and why we were hired was to prevent runoff specifically from one neighbor onto another neighbor's property. So with that in mind, everything was geared towards how do we retain more water on individual families, residential lots, if they go to make changes, or if they go to build on raw land, or demolish a house and build a bigger house, or put in a pool. Those types of things, all of that was worked into it and looked at it from that perspective. I would say that we spent more time looking at single family residential lots than we did at commercial. But everything that we did for single family residential lots, we were able to duplicate towards the commercial side. The commercial side was far more, in the redevelopment is far more where I borrowed City of Charleston language in order to add those in, especially for redevelopment, so that if you have a large shopping complex that was built in 1974 and it's going to go under massive redevelopment, I don't care if they're putting in new flooring. If it's over 50% of the value of that, they also need to go back in and put in the stormwater retention ponds in order to accommodate all the parking spaces. Right now, y'all don't have anything, neither does the Charleston County have that. But that was something that I know was very important in the city of Charleston, to start catching some of those properties that are grandfathered in as new development or redevelopment in this case goes in and repurposes those properties.
Any further questions or discussion? All right, well, hearing none, I guess we should go for a vote. Would you call the roll?
Councilman Bowles,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Mullinax,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
Yes. All right, thank you. So I guess now we're going to new business. Councilman Bowles, you had something?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I have a motion to amend the agenda to add some clarity to the vote we had at that last Zoom meeting where I had the motorcycle helmet on and the train was going behind me, making all kinds of noise. So I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to discuss providing clarity to the suspension of the hearings that we talked about at our last Zoom meeting.
Okay, so this is the emergency ordinance about electronic meetings. And so you like to amend the agenda to revisit the emergency ordinance about electronic meetings.
Yes, sir.
Is there a second?
I second.
And all those, please call the roll.
Councilman Bowles,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Mullinax,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
Yes. So we're on the agenda then is the emergency ordinance regarding electronic meetings.
Yes. At the last the emergency meeting that we had where we voted on that, we voted to suspend hearings because people from all sides we felt like would not be able to participate meaningfully in the hearings. What I should have been more clear about is to put in there that we, and I'm going to make a motion here in a second, is that the town should suspend accepting applications where the process involves a hearing. My reasoning behind that is that I think, and this would run, my proposal would run concurrent with the emergency ordinance so that it expires at the end of that 60-day period that we voted on before. If we're not going to have hearings, then let's just stop all of the applications where the process involves a hearing until the expiration of the emergency ordinance. And that is my motion. If you need any clarity, please let me know.
So this is an emergency ordinance to prohibit the town from taking any applications that involve public hearings.
That's correct.
Is there a second?
I second. Councilwoman Mignano.
Okay, any further discussion? So this only refers to taking applications that for activities that involve public hearings. I would like to have legal counsel consider that. It is an emergency ordinance, but I guess I can get back to you on whether that's an appropriate ordinance to suspend taking applications. Any other discussion? Is the town attorney, Bo? Hello?
It's probably fine for us to just go ahead and vote. If Bo says there's something wrong with it, we can we're all at home. We can hold a Zoom meeting and revisit it later. But my fear is that we're going to accumulate things in the pipeline that we can't satisfy. And I think there are requirements that if someone puts an application in and a hearing is required, that they may be entitled to a hearing, or that the town has to accommodate, and that's fair to both sides. And so if we can't accommodate the hearings, I think it's going to be important that we just tell everyone on a temporary basis, and this expires at the sunset of the other emergency ordinances that we enacted. But on a temporary basis, let's just stop processes that involve public hearings, since we cannot right now accommodate public hearings due to the public health crisis.
So I just would like to clarify that the emergency ordinance we passed regarding electronic meetings did not suspend public hearings. And it just doesn't, we had a long discussion regarding public hearings, and public hearings are an important part of the business of the Board of Zoning Appeals, and we ended up not including the Board of Zoning Appeals. They can't have electronic meetings, and so we didn't really speak to that. But that doesn't mean that a basically a new emergency ordinance that prohibits the town from taking applications for actions that will require public hearings is not in order. It's not really an amendment of that ordinance, but that's not really a concern. And also, I would, generally the period between when applications are taken and when the town is able to have a public hearing is long. In our business, it is not the case that, and I can be corrected by the planning director if I'm wrong, but it's not the case that a application is made and then we have to have a public hearing right away. We have long lead times where we have to advertise the public hearing, and generally, meetings are required and so on. But in any case, that doesn't mean that the motion's out of order. So it's really an emergency ordinance prohibiting the town from taking any application that requires, that would involve a public hearing.
To expire when the other ones expire. It's temporary.
Okay.
I think it's important that that's
any further discussion? I'm hearing none. Please call the roll.
Councilman Bowles,
yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Mullinax,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
No. Okay, any other new business?
Yeah, Mayor,
Yes.
I counted the days between our March meeting and our next May meeting. And our emergency ordinances that we adopted are slated to run out, I believe, on May 19th, which is a couple of days, 48 hours before our next scheduled council meeting. I guess I would ask whether we need to make a motion to cover that 48-hour period with our emergency ordinances pending perhaps renewal at the May 21st council meeting.
Well, thank you, Councilman Milliken, for counting that out. And if that becomes a concern, if the situation in late May is such that we need to renew, we could always, and I think it would be appropriate, to have a special meeting to extend any emergency ordinances. But if you wish, it would be good if we had a list of those emergency ordinances if we were going to extend them at this time.
Yeah, these would be the ones that were passed at the March meeting.
Yes. And so do you have a motion? Do you have numbers that you wish to?
I don't have the numbers in front of me.
So
I can screen share. Let's see. I have it up right here. So it would be these two.
I can't, this is Councilwoman Mignano and I can't see anything.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything either.
Sorry.
No, it's
I
fine.
thought that would work. So it's emergency. The first one was emergency
Oh,
ordinance.
there you go.
Here we go.
1-2020 emergency ordinance pertaining to electronic meetings, and then the other one was the 02-2020 emergency ordinance pertaining to suspension of ordinances and other emergency protocol.
Thanks, Ashley. This is Bowles. I make a motion to amend the agenda.
I second.
to extend the emergency ordinances.
Yes, sir.
So there's a second by.
Yep, I second
Mignano.
Councilwoman Mignano.
Is there, please vote.
Councilman Bowles,
Counselor, yes.
Yes.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Mullinax,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
Yes. So now is there a motion to take action?
Yes, to extend E01 2020, E02 2020, an additional 48 hours until our next council meeting, which is scheduled for May 21st, 2020.
Second.
Okay. Is any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, well, please call the roll.
Councilman Bowles,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilwoman Mignano,
Yes.
Councilman Milliken,
Yes.
Councilman Mullinax,
Yes.
Mayor Woolsey.
Yes. Any further new business? Hearing none, I call the meeting adjourned. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Safe.
Bye-bye.